A lot of it comes from, things that happened in my childhood. Had a good, very good home, raised up in church, and mom and dad in the home. But unfortunately, I mean, who has a perfect marriage? No one has a perfect marriage, so there were things that happen.
People say that they do, but it's not always that perfect.
True,
Right.
very true.
And there were things that happened, in my childhood. My dad was, even though he loved me, he loved all of us. But how some dads can be, they can say some things that's kind of harsh.
Kind of rough, huh?
Yeah, sometimes. And a lot of things that he has said, kind of stuck with me. And, along with some other things that transpired. And, of course, with that being daddy, you believe what dad says, and that's, some of the things that he said. Well, not too nice, but, and I just happened to carry it on into my marriage, being angry, not realizing that what was going on with me was a lot of things that happened in my past. Just being angry, giving him a hard time, and through everything, no matter how I acted towards him, he was always steadfast in Christ.
Right.
Always steadfast. Times we would get into arguments. Most of them was because of me, and just being honest and open. The things that my dad took me through, the things I took him through, so just saying things to be hurtful, things I was, being spiteful, and just because I was hurting myself, with things.
And with you saying that, there's there is that saying, hurt people will hurt other people. And go ahead.
And like I said, I just took those things into my marriage, just being very abusive verbally, towards him, not physically, but, just very verbally abusive towards him, and just being, just being mean. And he was just faithful, of course, there was time that, he just took enough, and he would kind of lash out. But I thank God that he hung in there.
Praise God. Tell your side of it a little bit too.
Through it all, I thank God, hear this, I thank God for Reimage. At the time we had a men ministry. And that what picked me up to held on to the Word of God. What the Word of God said. We are to cover our wives.
Yes.
Keep her in prayer. So through that transaction, I was praying. We went through, like you said, it wasn't fun, but to a point you get fed up. And I think God knows to a point that what you can take, what you can bear. And right when you're ready to throw in the towel, when God moved in. And he moved in, and we looked at one another. We sat down, and we looked one another in the eyes and talked this thing up. Said, do you want to be back in the world? Because Satan is, he got his hand all in it. So, and we just confessed to one another that I love you. I looked at her, I said, honey, I love you. And she looked to me and she said, I love you too. She said, I do not want to leave you, live alone.
Right.
So I give it all to God. For what we went through, the trials and tribulation, it wasn't fun, but prayer works.
And let me ask you, did you have children at that
Yes,
time?
we did. Yes, we did.
So all three of them
Yes.
were there during that time.
Yeah.
So did they see some of the?
Yeah.
Yes, they did. But we tried to keep it at a minimum.
Between the two of you.
Yes.
That is
yes.
so very
Yes.
important sometimes. And so through that season,
Yes,
I put
that
through that
season.
season, God had his hands on you. You want to talk about it? Through that season, God had his hands on you. And
there were, not only the verbal abuse that, he experienced from me, but there were times, just getting mad and leaving home. And that's something that you should, as a married couple, a young couple, whatever,
Yes.
you should never get mad and leave home. But that was my way of fixing things, you know. And then at the time, I also felt really neglected by him, you know, and it just caused me to do things I shouldn't have done, you know.
But God.
But God,
Yes.
you know, God was there. You know, he kept us through it all. And he just continued to say, you know, honey, you know, we don't want to do this in front of the kids. You know, you don't want to argue in front of the kids. And we would try. But, you know, me and my hot temper, you know, and just being the Carol that I was at the time, you know, sometimes I didn't care, and I just would try to argue with him, you know, and do things or say things to him that would try to, you know, that would hurt him. And he did not like arguing in front of the kids, but you know, just me being me at the time. Yeah, I did. It didn't matter to me then.
So tell me something. How then does a healing process happen for a marriage that is wounded? And we may have to give a little bit of the answer for this and then go into the next session. But
Well, like my husband said, the healing process began with me because, first of all, I had to say, okay, this is my fault. I had to be accountable for what I was.
There's that word, accountability.
Yes.
And and anybody that would try to get outside of that, there's no way. You have to be accountable for the things that you've done wrong, you know. And not saying that you have to go and talk to anyone about it. It's just you and God. Because sometimes that's what God is waiting to hear, you know. And I learned, and God taught me. Talk to me about anything. Anything. Just, I'm your father. Talk to me about anything. So what I had to do is I had to start with me. I had to allow God to start with me. Because most of the time I was the issue. I had to allow God to start with my heart, you know. And I had to say, okay, well, Lord, you know, I'm responsible for this. You know, I say things to him. I treat him in a way that's ungodly. I treat him in a way I shouldn't treat him. You know, he doesn't deserve this. You know, I knew he loved me. There was never a doubt that he loved me. I always knew that he loved me. So I had to start with my confession before the Lord and just say, these are the things that I'm wrong for. I take responsibility for it. I don't blame him because I did blame him. I was looking for somebody to blame. And God made me understand that you can no longer blame anybody else. You have to be accountable for what you've done.
So what I'm hearing, I think you were owning up to your own responsibility,
Yes.
as far back as maybe to the hurt that maybe you brought on to you
Yes.
by a male in your life, which happened to be a husband,
Yes.
and maybe, tell me if I'm right or wrong, maybe lashing out against him. And what were you doing at this time? You tell me, what were you doing when all of this was going on? Were you praying? Were you?
Yes, I was definitely praying because I love my wife. And I realized that after we had found out about what God had done, how he united us, I said, well, why would God put us together and allow this to happen to separate us? So I felt in my spirit that there was something special that God had put us together for. So, and like I said, through the men ministry that we had, he taught us how to pray for our wife. Lift them up before God, and that's what I was doing. While all this was going on, I was praying, and God heard my prayer.
Yes, he did.
And I thank God.
Oh,
I thank God
praise
Almighty.
God. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Praise God. And that will lead me into maybe one other question. Why is it important to choose your words carefully when disagreements come? Because I'm hearing that there were arguments, there was disagreements and things like that.
Well, the Lord taught me through studying and spending time with God. Carol, you will have what you say you have. The things that you speak over him, you speak into him, that's what you're going to get. The way you think about yourself, the way you feel about yourself, that is what you're going to display. So I learned through spending time with God that the Lord said, Carol, if you read at the very beginning of Genesis, it tells you that I spoke these things into existence. I said, let there be light, and there was light.
Yes.
Let there be fowls in the air, and there were. He said, so what you speak and what you say is what you're going to have. So I thought, okay, God, so what you're telling me is my words is the key. So he said, when you begin to speak positive things into him and act out on those positive things, instead of saying to him, well, you never get this right, or you never do this right, or you can't please me, you don't do this. Instead of saying those things, he said, reverse those things, repent for those things, and speak good things into his life.
So what I hear you saying, that you use the N word, the never, 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 and which we're talking, we should never really say.
That's right.
Because it's not all right.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Oh, wow. So in the midst of that, had you lost some element of romance and all of that, and had to do whatever it took to try to get it back in there? Because I understand, I believe that I understand from hearing you before, that there was those moments of really the euphoric romance and everything, but somehow through the bad words or, and I'm not saying curse words, I'm saying the words of negativity, it caused that to stop.
Yeah.
So how do you get it back?
Well, through saying the negative things that I said to him, God taught me how to reverse those things. And once I began to speak positive things into his life and speak positive things about me, God taught me how to display those things too. So I would tell him I love him, I would show him I love him, and I noticed that I would get those things returned. So spending time with each other, speaking good, the word of God. And the Lord said, you let your words line up with my words, and watch those things manifest.
And you will have what you say.
Right.
Yes.
And we're going to stop right here and just say, this is the victory that overcomes the world,
Amen.
that even our faith.
Simply incredible, this word is edible. Gospel, you'll get a plate full. We eating soul food, cause if not, then you snacking on.
Hey, and welcome back to Holla Back. I'm your boy Big Mike. Last week we were talking about goals and stuff that we're going to set for the new year. This week we're going to talk about love. Now, we all got a different definition or explanation of what love is. Some people think love is a feeling. Some people is, love is what you do for other people. So many people have different ideas of love. So we're going to try to break that down, see what love is, what we think love is, and what God really says love is. All right, why don't you sit back, relax, and holla back. Hey, welcome back to Holla Back. Right now our message and our topic today is love. Now we're sitting back thinking what love is. What do you say love is? Alright. Well, let's see what the Webster Dictionary says. It says love is a strong affection or unselfish desire or benevolent concern toward another person's good. Now that's pretty big, and let me break it down for you. It's like a strong affection, so that might be even emotion, and then unselfish desire for a benevolence, for another man's good. Benevolence means a concern or even charity-like. So when we think of love, we're thinking of doing something nice to somebody else. But actually, half of us probably think that love and lust are the same thing. We go off of the more of the affection or the emotional side of love. We think that love is that goosebumps that you get when you're around that certain person, or that feeling that you get when you do something kind to someone else. Like when you see a girl, all right, in high school, I just had this strong infatuation with this one girl. She sat right beside me in class, and every time I seen her, I just got that feeling of like, where she does something to me. So every time I seen her, I always try to do something nice and trying to spark that same emotion towards me. But love isn't necessarily like that. Let's see what God uses love and says love is a different thing. Love is actually a commandment he has towards us. It's not based on feelings or emotion. It's actually a principle that we have to put into practice. I'm going to go into this book. It's called Words to Live By. It actually breaks down love just great to me. Let me get it for you right quick. It says, love as in the Bible presents, it isn't a feeling. Love is a commitment to a course of action that may result in feelings, but it isn't depending on feelings. So that's one thing we might need to get out of our head is love is actual feeling that we have is actually a commandment, but we have to put into practice, because some things we do or some things we're longing for, we want to feel it, and then if we don't get that feeling, we try to cut it off. And that's the wrong way to do with love. Love is something that you have to go and do, even if the situation doesn't call for it, or you don't feel like it's the optimal time to do something. Love is a commandment that may result in feelings. So after a while, if I put my principles in practice, I might get a feeling out of it, a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of fulfillment. But it's not necessarily, and we shouldn't base that, because our feelings, we can't be driven by our feelings, because even when we wake up, our feelings might not be the same today as it is going to be yesterday. As it